Welcome to the audio excerpts of special seminars and conversations with Nolan Narula on gettingpositivekarmanow.com.
Because remember, what is money? Money is an idea. It's not real. Money is a form of consolidation of people's karma, their activity, their work. So if you approach your profession from the angle that you are actually handling people's karma, it's a very powerful position. Depends how you look at it. So immediately some brilliant intricacies will be available to you. Some thought processes, some plans, some ideas. So it can become very interesting. So you should look at your life's activities, whatever profession or work you're in, that basically you're dealing with karma. The currency that you're dealing with as healers is karma. That's the money. They say money makes the world go round. Why? Because it's karma. Money is a concept of solidifying karma in a way, in a universal form. So it is a bank balance of karma that you are connecting with. It's work, it's some energy. It's not rupees or dollars or pounds or marks or yen. It's the work. So either the work is valued properly or the work is devalued or undervalued or wasted. See, work means movement. Money also means movement. If money is not in movement, it decays. So when you say you come to a particular stable position in your life, it is apparently stable, but there is movement internally. And that movement must continue. That is the secret of money management. That's the secret of managing your life also. That you have to manage the movements in your life of your karma. Money is an idea, but behind the idea there is some reality. Enterprise, work. Where there is no enterprise backing money, then there's a cheating system. If there is no value that is acknowledged as being something of value, in the old days, seashells used to be money. In India, we have this saying, kauri, which is a cowrie. C-O-W-R-I-E is a seashell. That cowrie used to be a form of money. It used to be tradable as money. And then the saying become kauriyon ke bhav, means it is of no value, worthless, because they are so plentifully available on the seashore. So something that is very plentifully available with no intrinsic value. So what is that of value that you are giving or bringing to your daily activity is important. There are a lot of people who are working in the same profession as you, or business or industry or whatever it is, but you are bringing some uniqueness. That gives value to what you are doing. You are able to create value for somebody. If you are able to create value for someone, then you are valuable. Then your activity is valuable. If I'm thinking I'm just having a job and I just go 9 to 5 and I just clock in and clock out, you will feel dissatisfied at some point. It's okay if you are on a pension. If you are a retired person, yes, then you're collecting your pension, then you sit and go fishing or you watch the butterflies or whatever it is you want to do. So you must have something that, see, what you have trained for, what you have originally been attracted to, you should know by now. And if you are in the right place still, circumstantially you may be thinking I'm in the wrong place, but if you are in the right zone, you should have some patience and some tolerance. This will also pass. This is some spiral of disturbing air energy that is spinning me around, and that will go away, and that's the time I should take a decision. So sometimes the wisest thing to do is to postpone taking a decision, especially when you are not feeling good. Don't be in a rush to make a committed decision that will impact your existing status, especially if you're not feeling good, because you're bound to make the wrong decision. And what are you bound by? You're bound by your unhappiness or distress or your feeling of pain that you're feeling at that point in time. That will pass, then you'll regret it. So always wait, give it time, and very often things sort themselves out. Don't be in too much of a hurry. There's something very interesting is Warren Buffett said somewhere along the line, that what is his investment style, why is he so successful? He said, I first figure out what is the worth of what I am buying. And if I am satisfied that the worth is intact, it's good, and I am getting it at a price much less than it's worth, then I'll buy it regardless of what's happening outside. And then I just sleep over it. Whether the market is going up, down, the stock goes up, down, I don't care. I'll just sit on it. And there are others who will say, oh, it's going up, down, okay, it has hit my parameters, I must sell, I must buy. So those are the guys who have a lot of excitement and maybe make a little bit money, but consistently they don't. So sometimes the best thing is to just sit and don't do anything. Don't shake your existing style, so that you can understand as a principle or as a guidance that you can look at, that don't do anything that shakes up your existing lifestyle, that changes what you are able to do in terms of the minimum that you are having with you. So don't take such huge risks that will shake up your existing structure. You may not make great gains, but over time you will make tremendous gains. Some time back we were discussing in one of our classes that there was a comparison that a person that he was at the age of 18, he started investing $2,000 a year, something like that. And then somebody at the age of 25 started investing little more. And this fellow did this investment only for 7 years and then he stopped. By the time they were 60 years old, the first guy had 2 or 3 times the amount of money than the second guy who kept investing for 30 years. Because of the early start and the time factor. So time factor is very great. Little bit you start saving now. Little bit you start putting away. Doesn't sound like much. But because of the compounding effect, it becomes huge. If you look at the history of all the rich men in the past, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, how did they multiply their money? The power of compounding. And it is said that they just let the money sleep, multiplying at 2% per year. Doesn't sound like much. But when you add it up over the years, it's a huge amount of money. 2.5%, that was I think the compounding that the American system had. They had a very small rate of interest. Even now it's 0. But basically if you multiply your money at a small rate, it's very good. So here if you put your money, let's say in a Provident Fund account, the public Provident Fund, you're getting 8%. The interest is free, the compounding of it is free, it is free of wealth tax, it is free of income tax, and it's not, can never be attached for any debt that you have. So That is something. Only thing is that you have to lock it away. It's the scheme runs in multiples of 15 years. So it may not sound much. Okay, 70,000 rupees a year is all I'm saving if you have a larger income. For those who don't have, it's a good amount of money that you can save tax on. You get some tax breaks and so on. But at the end of the day, it works out to be a huge amount of money. And it's fairly painless. Few hundred rupees every month you save, you will end up having a nice, sizable chunk of money 15 years down the line. And many employers have a scheme that where if you invest something, the employer will also invest an equivalent amount or some amount. So that's doubles your return, more than doubles, maybe even 3 or 4 times it will work out, because you didn't invest that much. So you should look at these are small gains. In nature things work in small increments and have a very multiplier effect way down the line. So if you are unhappy today with something that you are doing, you must immediately be vigilant and pull it out. It's like a weed that's growing. You must pull out that weed before it grows so big to take away the energy from everything else that's growing. It will take away the energy from your fruitful plants. So dissatisfaction you should ruthlessly remove. What is the cause of dissatisfaction? Why am I dissatisfied? Why do I want to be dissatisfied? Things are too easy for me. Okay, I've got more spare time, let me do something else. I used to tell people this, I'm bored in my work. I said, go online and learn something. You have access to computer, yes. You have time, 2-3 hours in the day. Well, do an e-learning course. Get a hobby. Do something. But you can't live in a virtual world all your life in the mind or in a speculative zone. You have to live in the real world. So do something. So enterprise is good. Our country, you look at, we have a very great tradition of enterprise. Every chap on the street corner selling a cup of tea from a dhaba, he's an entrepreneur. Chap selling flowers on the road, he's an entrepreneur. These guys who come at the traffic light to sell you books and magazines, they're entrepreneurs. Yeah, so you're plugged in. Yes, quick. There are chaps who sell tires there. Once I remember some years back at South Extension, Mulchand Crossing, these guys are actually selling car tires. And there was a very interesting story about those car tires. They were selling these Goodyear tires. At that time it used to be Goodyear, now it's Goodrich or something, or Firestone, I don't know, one of these good companies, Bridgestone. And the tires they were selling were better than what the company made. They were fake. So those guys were interviewed, the company people. So they said, we know. They said, but it's good for us. I said, why? He said, because then the reputation is that our tires are very good. So they're making a higher quality tire. Whoever's making that fake tire is making a higher, which is the first time I'd ever heard of something like that. That was quite astonishing. So that's enterprise. May not be legal, but I'm saying that, it is enterprise. Somebody is making better than what the company made, which is quite something.
And cheaper.
And selling it, maybe a little cheaper. Okay?
You've been listening to a discussion with Nala Narula on www.gettingpositivekarmanow.com.